Hello lovely Year 12, soon to be Year 13s, and welcome to your first lesson of your A2 course, The Politics and Society of Sparta, 478 to 404 BC. So, if you can just take a minute, write down the title, the aim and the date so you know what you're doing, pause the video while you're doing that, and then we'll carry on. So, in a nutshell, the Year 13 course, the Sparta course, is a depth study rather than a period study, which the Year 12 course was. Ultimately, this means it requires a much greater familiarity with the sources. The sources are far more specific. They're not as massive as Thucydides and Herodotus, but like I said, you need to know your sources almost inside out. You need to have more specific evaluation of the sources, so you can't just get away with saying Plutarch is a biographer. It's part and parcel of this. They expect you to know stuff about this material. And to some extent, they also require that you look at secondary or modern interpretations of Greece. Don't worry too much about that because we use that as revision at the end of Year 13. But in a nutshell, Society of Sparta is similar but different. And just for fun, there's a nice picture of a Spartan's ass on the board for you. But there's good news. So the good thing about the Year 13 course building on the Year 12 course is it covers the same time period and it covers one of the same people, the Spartans. A lot of the examples you would normally use within your Year 13 course or within your Year 13 essays, you already know. You already know these guys. So you've done some of the work already. So you know who Archidamus is. You should be able to remember who Pleistonax is. People like Lysander, they come back. It's also really useful because it will help you revise your Year 12 stuff because it's the same time period. And you already know quite a lot about Sparta. It's very difficult to have done what you've done without any real knowledge of Sparta. So this is why we do it this way around. So let's start where we begin, as always, a little bit of geography, everyone's favourite subject. Sorry, Ella and Larder, I know you chose it, but so in front of you you've got a map of Greece. This should not be particularly new to you, it's more of a reminder. The obvious focus we need to look at here, though, is the Peloponnese, or on this map, annoyingly called Peloponnesus. You will need to know a little bit more about where things are in and around that region. And if we look a little bit more closely, it might be an idea to just pause the video now and have a look quite closely at what is on this map. I will obviously give you copies of these maps. So we need to know specifically some of the key regions in the Peloponnese. So particularly towards the bottom, if you look at the region called Laconia or Lacedaemon, that is the region that Sparta is in. That's kind of key. Just to the left of that you've got Mount Taygetus and that mountain range. Even further to the left you've got Messenia, Pylos and Sphacteria. Above it we've got Arcadia, everyone's favourite city Argos. So there will be more reference to these particular regions of Greece. I will give you a copy of this map, just so if it comes up in the sources you know what you're talking about. And another map, but this time it's in colour, which is always nice. This map particularly shows the regions of control. So if you look at the bottom, the kind of faded yellowy bits, this is the area of direct Spartan control. So when we talk about Sparta, it's key to remember it's not just the city-state, it's the surrounding areas. The Spartans obviously living in Sparta, but the perioikoi, the dwellers around in this yellow area. Above this you get the green bits, which are the Spartan allies, the Peloponnesian League, and the blue bits are obviously their mortal enemies, Argos and Athens. So just as a quick recap, quick refresher, take a full page in whatever you're doing it in, a book or maybe that passing helicopter, and let's make a mind map, or Larder's obviously going to hate mind maps, so whatever form Larder wants to do it in. Make a mind map or your version thereof of what we already know, or what can we already remember about society in Sparta. So I've given you headings of education, military culture, values, society, how it works, their views from outside of Sparta, so what did other people think of them, and government. So just pause this video, take about 5-10 minutes, start with what you can remember off the top of your head, start adding some bullet points, some details and so on, just as your own peace of mind. What can you remember? You should be able to fit something under each heading. If after you've gone through what you can instantly remember, maybe look back in your Year 12 book and add a few details. This doesn't have to be massive. Like I said, this is just your starting point. So just pause the video now while you do that, and then we'll carry on. So really at this point we should talk about everyone's favourite thing, the sources. And there are lots, but significantly less than the other Year 13 courses. So you will have copies of these. Your two main sources for studying Sparta are from Xenophon and Plutarch. These are not huge documents. They are relatively small, relatively light touch, and we'll get into why that is later on. But they're the ones that, if nothing else, you need to know cold. There is still some Thucydides, so you can't escape from him. But there's also lots of little snippet sources that you can cross-reference to. These are all in a lacta. You will get copies of these. With the little sources, it's not necessarily that you need to know exactly what's in them or who says them. It's more for a comparative point. So you could use basic statements like other sources say. Or if you get one of these unusual little sources in an exam paper, it's nothing new. You've seen it before. You should be all right with it. One of the sources, obviously, is our little Spartan figurine woman called Jill, but we'll do more about her later because everyone loves Jill. So now more of what I want you to do, particularly before next week. So as you're probably aware now, you've done this for a while, one of the key things that's going to make your life a lot easier is making yourself a little glossary where you can record all the various different words, the different spellings of the words, I'm sorry that's not going away, and what they mean. So on a separate piece of paper or in the back of your book or somewhere that is going to be easily accessible, can you create now a quick little glossary? Usual deal, down the margin for the key words and then space for the definitions. And what we're going to do on the next couple of slides, there are going to be some keywords and their definitions. I'll talk through them, but again you'll need to pause the video and make your own versions of them. I'm not letting you just copy them off the PowerPoint. So here are your first two key terms. Now the first word is Spartiates. These are Spartan citizens, typically the ones we think of. The best phrase to use when talking about these is Spartan citizen soldier, because don't forget, these are the people who could only have one job, and that was as a soldier. Another word to describe the same people is homoioi. This means equals, or a person equal to me. This would be a term that Spartans would use to refer to each other. Outsiders from Sparta would not call them homoioi, but some of the sources, when they're looking from within Sparta, the Spartans would refer to each other as homoioi. If someone else tried referring to them as homoioi, they'd probably end up on the pointy end of a large spear, because don't forget, the Spartans thought they were better than everyone else. Third key term, or third and fourth, is Lacedaemonius or Lacedaemonians. Again, this is another term for the Spartans, but this is more commonly the term that people from outside of Sparta would use. Rather than saying Spartans, the Athenians would refer to them as the Lacedaemonians, because they are from the Laconia region. So if you think back to last year, we said Cimon is referred to as a Lacedaemonian sympathiser. He's a Spartan sympathiser. Another term you should be familiar with is helots or helots, depending on how ridiculous you want to be. We know these are the state-owned slaves, the serfs from Messenia. They do all the work while the Spartans are at the gym. and they tend to rebel because they don't like being stabbed by the Spartans. And last but not least, the perioikoi, or the perioiki, or the perioeki. There are lots of different spellings because, Greeks. We've come across these before. These are the dwellers around. That's literally what it means. They're not technically pure Spartan citizens, but they live in the region around. Think of these guys as, they're not the soldiers, but they're the things that societies and armies need to be what they are. So they're the craftsmen, the potters, the blacksmiths. The Spartans can't make their own weapons, so these guys make them for them. They're not the agricultural workers, they're not the farmers or the slaves. These are the craftsmen. Now, away from our key term definitions, you will probably need to make a note of this. So again, pause it at any time you want. One of the key things we look at Sparta is where it originally comes from, this semi-mythical origin, and it's to do with one guy called Lycurgus. Lycurgus is called the lawgiver, and he is credited with creating what we think of as Spartan society. A lot of the sources refer to him at various points, particularly Plutarch, whose biography is about him, and he's a good place for us to start with. And obviously there's the standard nudie Greek vase version of Lycurgus, seemingly carrying off a woman. So the first thing I want you to do is, you're going to need your copy of Xenophon, Polity of the Spartans. I will upload a short extract of this, the relevant extract, to the Google Classroom as well. And all I want you to do now is read the opening section of Xenophon, just section 1 and 2, and then you've got 3 questions. So I want you to write 5 observations Xenophon makes about Sparta. I want you to write down what is Xenophon's opinion of Lycurgus. Ideally give me a quote. And 3, why might this immediately make you question Xenophon's objectivity? So there's a bit of a clue about what Xenophon thinks there. These don't have to be massively long answers. We're just looking at, again, your brief summary questions. So can you write the answers to these 3 questions down, pause the video and unpause it when you've finished that. And as you will get used to, once we've done Xenophon, we need to look at Plutarch. So now open your Plutarch, same deal as before. I'll put an electronic copy on this lesson. Read the opening section of Plutarch, just Plutarch 1, and 3 questions again. So number 1, what problems does Plutarch mention when looking at Lycurgus? 2, when was Lycurgus supposed to have lived, according to Plutarch? And there will be multiple answers there. And number 3, what was Lycurgus supposed to have helped set up? Now, these 3 questions and the 3 questions from Xenophon are what I'd like you to return on Google Classroom, just so I can check you've got the key bits. Pause the video now while you do that. And last but not least, just to sum everything up that we've done, can you do a quick version of this diagram? Obviously we're looking at the balance between fact and interpretation, and using those 3 passages from Xenophon and Plutarch, can you use examples from what you've just read to kind of explain this diagram, particularly this balance between fact and interpretation? So you want to look at it kind of like, what do we actually know about Lycurgus, and how do the ancient sources interpret Lycurgus? You don't have to hand this in, but this will be a nice starting point for our next lesson. So until I see you all again, toodle pip.